Call to order this meeting of the Okeechobee City Council. Today's date is July the 21st, 2020. The time is 6 p.m. I'd like to welcome those that are here and those that are joining us by Zoom. I will remind those that are joining us by Zoom that if you would like to make a comment, if you would either use the raise your hand or the chat feature and say that you would like to make a comment, and the host here at City Hall will let us know. We'll be glad to take your comments. The invocation this evening will be offered by former council member Noel Chandler. That will be followed by the pledge led by council member Abney. If you're able, please rise.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for allowing us to be here together today, Lord, in your presence. Thank you for being each one of us, Lord. We give a special prayer, Lord, to those that out in the front line, Lord, the first responders, the deputies, police, Lord, those that involved with COVID, Lord, and we get that to a healing hand of this nation, Lord. We need it so bad, nothing talking about surprise. We have to be with the decisions that made here tonight, Lord. Bless you, Mr. Compton in the city. Bless we give each one here. Bless the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Chandler. Our first item, do we have a request for a withdrawal of items on today's agenda? We have an item to add. We'll add under new business, item H. We need to approve department heads giving administrative leave for COVID-19 exposure. That will be Exhibit A. That was at your place when you arrived this evening, and that will be added item H under new business. Any others? Hearing none, we need a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councilmember Abney to adopt the agenda. We have a second by Councilmember Gerald. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Do we have any public participation cards and comments from the public? Any from Zoom?
No, sir.
No comments. Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Anything you would like to move to the consent agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Clark.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Keith to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Next, we'll open the public hearing. We have two resolutions on our public hearing. We need a motion to adopt proposed resolution number 2020-07, providing for the collection and disposal services of residential solid waste customers and establishing a preliminary rate assessment for services. That's Exhibit 1 in your packet. Do we have a motion? Have a motion by Councilmember Gerald. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Clark. We'll ask the attorney if he will read resolution 2020-07 into the record, please.
The preliminary rate resolution of the City of Okeechobee pursuant to Section 2.08, Ordinance Number 784, relating to the provision of solid waste collection and disposal services, setting forth a brief description of solid waste services, determining the solid waste assessed cost for the upcoming fiscal year, establishing estimated assessment rate for the upcoming fiscal year, authorizing and setting a public hearing to consider comments from the public concerning adoption of an annual rate resolution, directing the city administrator to update the assessment roll, provide necessary notice thereof to affected landowners in the city, providing for conflict, severability, and an effective date.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Attorney. Do we have a discussion from the council? This is what we do annually to put the solid waste disposal fee onto the tax assessment. So discussion from the council. Anything from the public? Any comments from the public on the resolution to set the residential disposal? Seeing no public comments, having no more comments, Mr. Administrator, do you have anything you want to add before we?
No, I just want to let council know it was a little over $2 and change per resident per year, well under the allowable CPI.
Okay. No other discussion, we'll vote on the motion to adopt the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next item, under the public hearing, we need a motion to adopt proposed resolution number 2020-08, providing for the residential solid waste and collection assessment for fiscal year 2020-21. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Motion by Councilmember Park, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Keith. We will ask the attorney if he will read resolution 2020-08 into the record.
Yes, sir. Resolution of the City of Okeechobee relating to the provision of solid waste collection and disposal services, continuing imposition of the solid waste collection assessment previously established by Resolution 01-08, adopting the annual rate resolution as permitted by Ordinance 784 for fiscal year 2020-2021, approving the preliminary rate resolution, certifying the solid waste assessment roll as authorized by Florida Statutes 197.3632, Florida Statutes as necessary, providing for public hearing, comment, conflict, and providing for severability and an effective date.
Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Any discussion from the council on resolution 2021? It's just setting that fee that we did previously talked about. We'll ask if there are any public comments on resolution 2020-08, setting solid waste fee. Seeing no public comments, and no comments from the council, we'll vote on the motion to adopt the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. That closes the public hearing. We'll move on to new business. First item under new business is similar to what we just did, but this is for commercial. We need to adopt proposed resolution number 2020-09, providing for the commercial solid waste and collection rates for fiscal year 2020-21, Exhibit 3 in your packet. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Keith. Do we have a second by Councilmember Gerald? We'll ask the attorney to read resolution 2020-09 into the record.
Yes, sir. Resolution of the City of Okeechobee revising the commercial rate schedule for solid waste collection and disposal services within the city for fiscal year 19-2020, providing for conflict, severability, and an effective date.
Okay, any discussion from the council? Mr. Administrator, you have any comments?
No, they were, again, a minor increase as well this year, not consistent with residential rates.
With no other discussion from the council, we'll vote on the motion to approve the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Next item is an update from the Florida Department of Health, Okeechobee County regarding COVID-19. Is Tiffany on Zoom?
She is not. She is supposed to be here, so she'll be late probably.
She's supposed to be here in person.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, if it's agreeable with the council, we'll, we've made her wait several times, so I think it's only fair that when she comes in, we'll come back to this item if that's agreeable with the council. Yes, sir. We'll move on to the next item. We need a motion to adopt proposed resolution number 2020-10, creating the City of Okeechobee Citizens Charter Review Advisory Committee, the CCRAC. What are we going to call that? The CRAC?
Crack or C-crack?
CCRAC? Okay. That's exhibit 4 in your packet. Do we have a motion to adopt, have a motion by, Councilmember Gerald? We have a second? Second by Councilmember Abbey. We'll open it up for discussion. Discussion from the council. Any discussion? I think you have the memo from the attorney and the resolution. Looks like we'll have a 7-member, what are we going to call it? Crack?
Correct. Caesar.
That just doesn't,
Caesar. Caesar.
C-Rack? C-Rack sounds better than crack.
It's addictive.
The C-Rack will be 7 members. Each council member shall appoint one member, and then the council will appoint the other two members. Member shall, I just have two questions. The CRAC does not have the authority to fill a vacancy unless we give them that authority. Is that correct? So
That is
let's say
correct.
someone should resign from the committee. Either the council would fill that position, or we would say, okay, committee, you have the authority to do it.
Yes, sir, that's actually explicit in here, they cannot.
They cannot. And I see under attendance, they shall be automatically removed for failure to attend 3 consecutive meetings, or failure to attend more than one half of the meetings during the calendar year.
Yes, sir, I put that in because this is patterned off of one I've used for several years, and sometimes that's unfortunately become an issue for participation.
I just want to make sure the council understands that's in there, because that's pretty, I don't use the word harsh, but it's like you volunteered to be on the committee, but, so you better be here or else. So, I guess we're okay. That leads me to my question: should we allow for an alternate or two alternates? Should we allow for an alternate? In case someone were to be removed, then you have somebody that hopefully has been involved since the beginning and could fill in. Yes, Councilmember Abney.
Is this a type of committee that will have quorums and so forth, so on? I would
Yes, sir.
recommend alternate, and that way you definitely will have quorums, that would, you know, would the alternates go to each of the meetings as well? Is that what you're asking?
That's what, you know, like on our planning board and other boards, we have alternates. We allow them, if, say, for someone is absent, we allow them to step up. Now, you wouldn't necessarily have to do that here unless you, like you say, that would, if you had problems with the quorum, that would help that. Or it could be that they're just an alternate in case somebody, you could do it either way.
Correct.
I don't know, it just seems like that's a good idea to me, to have an alternate, somebody that has been involved. You know, the planning board, that's kind of how it sometimes were, when we had the code board, that's the way you kind of got your feet wet. You could sit over here and you learn the process, so.
Got excited whenever somebody was absent.
Yeah, you got the vote, yeah.
What's the magic number or an appropriate number of alternates then? Is it just one alternate or is it, you know, one per? I guess the planning board only has a couple alternates.
Yeah, they only have
Two.
I would think no more than two. One would probably be sufficient for this, because the planning board, it goes on forever.
Right.
This is hopefully a year or so. I'm guessing a year or a year and a
It's
half,
sunset.
2 years.
I
Yeah.
put in the sunset provision here.
So, Mr. Attorney, can you add, I guess, under section 4, I don't think go under 4A, but can we add an alternate? Is one agreeable?
I think one's enough.
Okay, and to be appointed by.
I think it would be like the 2 members, and
Done.
that may make it much easier. We all appoint one, and then we appoint 2 regular and 1 alternate. I'm sure if you're looking at me, you have no issue. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, this is also what I call a strong chair form committee here. Whoever you appoint as the chair, they are going to keep the ball moving down the field. They will develop the agendas, conduct all the meetings, and really keep things moving along so progress is being made. I couldn't emphasize that. You always need, you know, because you gotta have somebody snapping.
And the committee will select a chair and vice chair.
Yes.
One other question, under F, meetings shall be held on a regular schedule, be determined by the chair. Meetings that are not regularly scheduled shall not be held with at least 3 business days prior notice to each member. Is 3 days enough? I know it's not for advertising, you have to just post it, but is that enough?
Well, this is just as a courtesy to, you know, I can't imagine unless there's some issue of urgency, why you would have a meeting under
Special meeting.
but sometimes that's possible.
But I guess the clerk would just have to post the notice and put it on social media and so forth.
I think that's the existing language as well.
Okay. Any other discussion from the council? So, do we need a motion to
Mr.
amend?
Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, thank you, Member Key.
I'd like some, somebody to expound on section 6, the ex officio member support staff. And what are the staff participation from City Hall in the citizen board here?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
So, in my experience, to also ensure this committee is making progress, they need staff support. And so I had a conversation with the clerk and with the administrator about who would be responsible for staff support. Ultimately, the decision was to have the administrator appoint the appropriate staff. That could involve someone, not just a minute taker, but someone to make sure that as they develop language, that language is being circulated, it's being proofread. So in this case, the administrator is a non-voting or ex officio member, and he would be responsible for administration and support of the committee's efforts.
And that could change depending on how the committee's progressing or what they're discussing. You know, you may need some expertise from a certain staff member that they may need to attend this, a certain meeting if we're discussing the police department. You may need, somebody from, planning issues. You may need somebody from the planning department to be here to explain how those things work. So I think it wouldn't be, they wouldn't necessarily be all the time the same staff member. It could vary depending on what the needs of the committee are. And
Yes, sir. We even talked, I think, the clerk about potentially having someone from the Florida League of Cities do some presentations on charters, the history of the charter. So yes, it would vary from time to time.
That makes sense. I appreciate that. Just because when I first read it, my initial thoughts were, involvement from offices here that could potentially be affected by particular amendments to the charter and undue or unfair, unethical, pressures from that offices, during these the citizen committee. Does that make sense? Because
Absolutely.
there is
was a
there potential
Yes.
for so that makes sense. I appreciate that explanation. Certainly. Another question, it's not addressed here. Was there in our discussions previously, did we discuss regular reports from the committee, or is this at the end, when it sunsets, we get here's a recommended new charter, or here's a recommendation for amendments? Was there any kind of
yes, and
updates?
kind of struggled with that a little because it could be that there are deliberations for the first 3 months and then language thereafter. So it's really going to be up to me and the administrator to make sure that substance is being reported to you. And it could be me at council meetings saying this or that happened. It could be the chair being invited by one of you to come and address and how are things going? Where are you at? What are the issues? Do you need direction from us midway through this process?
I assume we could ask to receive the minutes of each meeting.
You could attend the meetings.
Yeah, but we could ask that the minutes be
Absolutely, yes, sir.
distributed not only to the members of the CBRAC, but
Yeah.
distributed to the council.
And frankly, if I saw the committee going in a certain direction where I thought maybe it's time for some policy input from the council, that'd be my job to make sure it's in front of you.
And I'm sure some of us will be attending the meetings.
No doubt.
And remember, these are meetings that are subject to the sunshine.
Yes, sir.
Sunshine law.
So then, we're limited on the number of us present downtown.
No. So if it is a publicly noticed meeting, you can all attend and interact in a public meeting context.
Oh, fantastic.
We work the advertisements for all of the meetings, so that, just in case 2 or more would happen to attend. Just like the first night.
So 3 days would not give you enough time to schedule a meeting. You have to advertise the meetings for such.
Well,
Those are emergency situations.
they can be posted and they're not going to. be-
They're posted on 3 separate buildings, and that,
Yeah, I can't envision a scenario other than something got missed and it's an emergency and they got it.
Otherwise, it'll be scheduled and be advertised, like our other.
Yeah, I think out of respect for all the people devoting their time, we can probably come up with a 6-month or longer schedule of meetings so everyone is aware, who is obviously the public.
And how many meetings do you think it's going to take? I mean, once a month or twice a month or, I mean,
So
once
this
a
is
week?
also a conversation we've had, you can build a Cadillac or you can build a Chevy, they'll both get you from point A to point to point B. And that, I think, initially, I think this body's input is going to be important. If you would ask my opinion, I think less is more. I don't think a charter needs to be a Bible-like testament on everything that municipal works are involved in. That's a philosophical, and I think that's a great area of input or direction, frankly, from you.
It'll take quite a few meetings, I'm sure. Okay. Other discussion from the council? Councilmember Gerald?
Yes, I think we definitely need to approve it and go forward, but we also, I guess we're gonna discuss tonight, when this is gonna go into effect. And I heard on the radio, where they're already advertising for the 2 that will go, but when will we actually start?
When will we select, when's the application set to be in?
The council directed me to advertise for a minimum of 60 days, so the deadline that I have established is, sometime in August, so that I can have everything ready to go to one of the September city council meetings.
So it looks like September is a little point for them.
And at that time, we're gonna bring our nominee plus.
Well, I think
You're
the
supposed to be having them fill out
Yeah,
applications.
your nominee needs to fill out an application. Whoever you have in mind, they need to fill out an application, so it's on file.
And you'll get us that.
It's on the city
It's on
website.
our city
It's on the
website already, yes, sir, it's what the council directed me to do.
And they don't, they need to be either a city resident or a business owner.
And that's one of the things that I just
Business.
needed to bring up, and I apologize that I did not catch this. The council's direction actually was, so we do need to fix this. It's supposed to be a resident or a property owner, not a business owner, is what the council's final decision was at a previous meeting. So we do need to amend the language in the resolution on that.
Okay.
Is that a
Is
section
that what
or
we want,
paragraph?
property owner, or do we want
I
business?
thought you had said business owner, but that's my mistake.
Yeah, initially you did, but then the consensus finally was to just be a property owner.
There's some people that own a lot of property, but they don't have a business.
That is correct.
So, I guess we had done that by consensus last time, so
So we need to
probably
change.
will, if you will change that language. Do we need a motion to amend to add an alternate, or?
No, since you really haven't adopted anything that you need to amend, I think just with,
We're gonna adopt this,
right,
okay,
as amended.
as amended, okay. So we already have a motion, correct, to,
We have a motion to adopt the
resolution number 2020-10. Okay, other discussion from the council? I think we've got it rolling here, maybe. Okay, we'll vote on the motion to adopt resolution number 2020-10 as amended. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much. We'll now go to item B, update from Florida Department of Health, Okeechobee County regarding COVID-19. Ms. Tiffany, welcome. I know you don't have as good a news for us tonight as you've had in the past, but, and how did your testing go on Saturday?
We did not have as, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, we didn't have as good as turnout as we would have liked. We were really trying to show the state that we could fill the 500 tests so that we could bring some more asymptomatic testing to our community. We had an opportunity from the state to get a mobile test unit that could do kind of a drive-through test to the tune of 1,000 tests, kind of one of the caliber of like a National Guard test. And I really didn't think that showed them that we could maintain that kind of caliber of testing. So we lost that mobile unit to some of our coastal counties and the West Coast. But, supply and demand are, kind of, how that goes. So,
Do you think that we might have more of these in the future as more testing kits become available perhaps?
it wasn't a testing kit issue.
What-
They brought the test kits with them.
Oh, it was having them. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. I actually was going to ask I have a whole presentation, a briefing, and I'm happy to go over it with you, but I was actually going to ask if you guys wouldn't mind giving me the opportunity to change it up a little bit this morning, or this evening, and, I come up here, we've been doing this since March, or at least April, and I give my briefings, I give you the numbers, I give you guys the guidance on how to mitigate this infection, and we just keep seeing the numbers grow and grow and grow. So instead of me spewing at you what I think we need to do, I'd like to take an opportunity just for you guys to tell me what you'd like me to tell you. What do you guys think should happen? What can I do different? What can I say to you that can stop this, can change? What can we do? What should we do? How come people aren't wearing their masks? What will change it? What can I say to you to get people to care enough to change? What can I say to you? What should I say to you? What should we do?
I think you have beat that horse as much as you can beat it. And I'm sure other council members will have an opinion, but I think until you're affected by it or a member of your family is affected by it, you just don't realize how serious it is. Number one, I think a lot of people don't understand how serious it is. Number two, in a community like ours, I think there's a huge philosophical question, particularly about masks. If a governmental entity has the right or should order or mandate you to wear a mask. And I've heard some really good arguments of why that should be allowed. Of course, the best one I heard was when you don't smoke and around with other people. So, and number three, I think, since we've opened up, which I think, I was all in support of that, by the way, because I hate to see a business have to close. I don't think that's, government should do that. But that's just that's a philosophical. But I think since we've opened up, people have taken that to mean that, hey, everything's okay. I will say I'm glad to see that some of the major stores or retailers have started mandating or will start, I guess it started today in some of them, that you have to wear a mask. Personally, I try to wear one. Sometimes I don't remember to take it out of the truck, but I try to wear one because I would hate to think that I had it and didn't know I had the virus and I spread it to someone else. I gave it to them. So I purposely try to wear a mask as much as I possibly, or when I possibly can, because I would just hate to think that I did that to someone else. So, and then of course, then there's the issue of the younger people, and of course, Noel can't remember that far back, but I can remember that far back when I was that age. Nothing was ever going to happen to me. I mean, you know, yeah, you're invincible. Yeah, nothing's ever going to happen to you. And so I think it's a whole combination of things. And I wish I had a good answer for you. And I think there are many people, I guess the governor would like to have a good answer to that. But I think we have to set the example as much as we possibly can as kind of leaders in our community. And anyway, so that's my thought. I would, if I were to ask anything of you, and we've asked this of you every single time, I think, is that I just wish we could have open testing. I know that's not going to happen.
But I did that.
Yeah, I know, but
I did that, and
Yeah.
nobody showed up.
yeah. But the problem is, and I'll give you my example. I wasn't feeling good over 4th of July weekend. And of course, the first thing you think of is, oh my gosh, I got the virus. And, I looked up the symptoms, what the symptoms, and I thought, well, it was on a kind of a weekend. I thought, I'll go to the CVS site and I'll get a test. Well, of course, trying to be honest, I answered the questions they asked, and I get a pop-up that says, well, you don't qualify for a test. So, I
And
said,
there's
all right.
value in being truthful because of the science behind, you don't wanna say you have a symptom and you
Right.
don't, because then you're taking the test too early, so
Right.
it's true. There's
So,
value.
so that was, and like Saturday, unfortunately, I had another event, couldn't be there. But I don't know that I would, because I thought, well, shoot, I guess I didn't have it because I survived. So I guess I'm okay. So, that's kind of the dilemma that we find ourselves in. It would be nice if you could get a test when you felt like you needed. I guess you could lie about it and say, well, gosh, I got a bad cough, and then say, okay, well, come on in, But anyway, that's just my thought, and I know you've got other problems than that right now.
And I've done a lot to Ms. Clark's point, and I'll be happy to share what I've researched about what other rural communities are doing, as part of my presentation to figure out how and what exactly they're doing, so I'll be happy to share that. And I'll continue to advocate for Okeechobee County, and just because I'm at the point where I'm like, how much longer do we want to continue to do this? Do we want this to end? I'm happy to see that somebody other than the healthcare industry, to your point, is at the point where they're willing to step up because they want it to end as bad as we do. Where they're going to start to put, policies and initiatives into place to say, for whatever bottom line they're looking at, whether it's, humanity or profit, that they're gonna say, no, we've had enough. Like, we've had enough. We want this to end. It's not, it's not stopping, and so we're going to put these measures into place. And I mean, I'll continue to be here and support our community, and it's public health is what we do. It's population health, and when I say no one showed up, we had 259 that showed up, so 259 people that wanted a test got a test that day, and that's why we were there. But when I request a mission and I have professionals from the state come out and I have an offer to get a 1,000-person drive-through here, and the best I can get is to share it with the rodeo at the Ag Center, but I can't even, one, that's not a smart move, and I can't even get a fill of 500, I don't have an argument. I don't have an argument with the state, and unfortunately, our coastal Bayer communities, their demand is the better argument. So we've got to kind of, show them we want what we say we're saying we want.
I'm sorry, I've monopolized the conversation, so the other council may have question or comment or?
I'm sure we all have comments to make. I mean, it's been blown out of proportion on the news media. And when I hear 5 doctors tell me 5 different things, I'd like to see the testing in, but I see here something recently, when I was in school, I don't remember my parents getting a choice of three choices. You want to go to school, you want to do it virtual. It's gotten out of hand because nobody will make the decision. And unless somebody takes it seriously, no matter what the issue is, it's not going to happen. If we're going to wear the mask, then it's got to be enforced. You know, you can't, I see the suits going on everywhere. But I can't tell you how to get the people out.
Tiffany, we certainly sense your frustration. I just want to applaud your efforts and everything that you and your staff, office has done. And echoing what Councilmember Gerald just said, we're dealing with people that have free will and their own belief systems. So it's going to continue to be an uphill battle for all of us. So, but thank you for all that you do.
Tiffany, I think you know that my office called your office probably 3 or 4 times since February about testing, because we work, our business goes into the healthcare of this county, and they have to be tested. And out of total frustration of trying to get tested for the last 5 months for my employees, because if they can't present a letter that they're negative, they cannot work at that property. And so out of total frustration, we found a way to get tests done. And I know that the Okeechobee Health Care Facility also is doing their own testing. And the only alternative I had was to pay $250 a test, and which I thought was absolutely ridiculous. So I think it was out of, finally finding a way to go get it, stop my employees from coming to see you on Saturday, because we finally got tests done last Monday so that we weren't prevented from doing our work. So I don't know if anybody else is in that same situation, but it's kind of like a little late, for us to get this, because, we had to do something. And so I think if you've been in contact with somebody and your livelihood depends on what happens with that exposure, then I think they should have the option to get tests done. But, when someone tells me, well, try this, and try this, and try this, and try this, and you spend 30, 40 minutes on the phone trying to find someplace to have the test done. So that's the only reason. If it had been announced before I made these arrangements, all my guys would have been there on Saturday getting tested. So I appreciate it.
And I can see to return to work as part of what I've been doing, because all along there's been some misunderstanding on the business end of the community on requiring their employees to test to return to work. That really, is depending on and I'm sorry, I don't know the business you're referring to directly, but
we provide services to healthcare in facilities. That's the reason. We do air conditioning repair, and also kitchen repair and things like that.
Right.
Water heater repairs, those kinds of things.
So, and so the guidance really had from the CDC, and it just got updated this week, that is the healthcare workers and the first responders are the only ones that really should have had the option to do the test-based strategy to return to work. That wasn't for the general business community. The business community heard that strategy and took that as, I need to have my employees tested to return to work. There was a symptom-based strategy that should have been return to work strategy that should have been utilized for all businesses to return to work. So that has also been a concern of the county commission as well of, I have all these businesses that aren't letting their employees return to work, and my staff did a lot in the call center to, whenever they got calls from an employee, residents of our community who's saying, I need to return to work because I took a day off, and it wasn't even a sick day off, but they're concerned that I was sick and not telling the truth, and now I can't return to work. So my staff did a lot of work to call those businesses personally, explain to them, show them guidance on the CDC website that says there's symptom-based strategy. So even if you think this employee was sick and had symptoms, they can return to work without a test-based strategy. Just this week, CDC put out new guidance that says it is no longer, little late, I get it, but they have to go based off of research. That even for the healthcare industry, the test-based strategy is no longer the recommended strategy. So they're now saying even for healthcare workers, with some rare exceptions, basically if you're extremely compromised, severe illness, that is no longer the recommended return to work strategy, even for healthcare workers. So, a lot of effort was put on our end to try to correct that misunderstanding. And we did, for what it was worth, we did a lot of, try to push out to all of our PIO listings that we had our event on Saturday. And a little bit to your effort, it's, a matter of, there was also another event unbeknownst to us, the food truck was also on Saturday, we didn't realize that, or else we would have tried to partner with them, and that would have been, good 400 or 500 cars, we probably could have hit at the same time. But also, we just don't know, just maybe people just don't want the test, and then that's fine, if you become symptomatic, and that's the true science behind it, then, we'll get you when you become symptomatic, and, if you wait, if you feel you've been exposed, that's the guidance, you should really be staying home for the 14 days, waiting to become symptomatic, so that you don't expose anyone else, and then when you become symptomatic, call us, give us a call, come on in, we'll get you tested, and then see if you have become positive, and we'll test you, and if you're negative, you return to work with a mask. If not, then we'll go the route of, giving you the guidance on how to, get with your provider and get you treated. So,
would you mind giving us the numbers for Okeechobee and the updated numbers?
yeah, sure. So for Okeechobee, for the cases, we have 684 cases, 2 deaths. Honestly, there has been more deaths in Okeechobee County residents, but they have been placed in long-term care facilities. So whenever you get placed in a long-term care facility, that long-term care facility, even if you have, are there for rehab temporarily, that becomes your permanent address. So know that even though there's only 2 deaths, there are additional residents of Okeechobee County that have passed away with either a primary cause of death or a significant underlying contributing factor of death for COVID. It's just that their long-term care facility has been outside of Okeechobee County. The ages are 0 to 94 with a median age of 36, about a 50-50% average of male to female. 5,208 have been tested, 13.1% above the target. 11.92% is the state average, that's above the 10% average that the governor wants us to be able to move through the phases of his recovery plan. We've received $138 million at the state level for CHDs to hire staff so that our local staff can get back to blue skies. And DOH locally, Okeechobee has received $405,910 for transparency's sake to hire temporary positions through December. We are going to hire these temporary positions, part-time positions, to continue to fund the call center and to contact trace primarily. That's contact tracing case investigations for our positive cases, monitoring, and we're going to hire 2 positions to continue to be able to do testing at our site. Again, to let you know what I did as far as looking at rural testing in our rural communities. I started a work group with our rural health officers in our South Florida area to take a look at asymptomatic testing. I got our health officers, state health office together. What they are doing, the ones that are doing asymptomatic testing, they are having their county fund with county CARES Act dollars, their EMS to do asymptomatic testing. So their county EMS is having paramedics and EMTs swab and do testing. So they are maybe doing once, twice, or 3 times a week testing. And they're using their health department facility to do those testing sites. A lot of them are also represented by big counties. For instance, Indiantown is technically Martin County, so as far as collection kits and labs, they are a bigger voice than just Okeechobee County locally. DOH test sites, we have been doing submission-based asymptomatic testing, calling in the IMT team. We talked a little bit about that. I have called in the IMT team a few times lately. For the nursing home, I had the residents tested based on some numbers that I was seeing with every 2 weeks having the nursing home staff tested. They were having some positives come in, a little bit concerning to me. So we have called the IMT team in. The first round, the nursing home had 10 positive residents. So we went out, we followed up, we did a wing of testing with my staff. We found an additional 2 residents positive. So we continue to take staff out there to retest the residents to make sure that they have what they do on isolation protocols. We'll continue to work with them to make sure we have the safety of the residents and the best interest of the residents in mind. We also called them out to the DJJ facility, which I believe I mentioned here before, but just in case not, they had 10 juveniles out there turn up positive. We also had a detox of South Florida positive. That's a very fast-paced rehab facility. Those residents are only there for a maximum of 7 days. We found out they had 7 of their residents, or excuse me, 3 of their residents positive. Before we even found out they were positive, they were shipped out throughout the state. So we went ahead and tested all of their staff, and we're waiting for those results to come back as well. As far as testing sites in the community, DOH, we're going to continue to do symptomatic testing, high priority. Urgent care is still continuing to test. There is a cost for that. CVS is still testing, self-administered. They will accept your insurance. There's no cost to you though. FCHC is continuing to test. They accept your insurance, no cost to you though. They are testing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If they get a high influx, they'll also test on Thursday. We also learned this week that Amerilabs is also testing. They are behind the movie theater. They will need a doctor's order. So again, if you feel that you've been exposed, your doctor wants to order you a lab and you're willing to do that, you could take that lab to Amerilabs. They do accept insurance. If you don't have insurance, I'm not sure what insurances they accept, you have to call them. But if not, then there is a fee that they would charge you. I have been involved in the school reopening team. I presented to the school board as part of their team, their crisis team, and provided them information as well as working with Russ and IRSC to get them back up and going for their fall session. I presented data to the school board on information for the pediatric report. I just looked that up as well. Of the 97 pediatrics that have been tested, 550 that tested, 97 came back positive. That's a 17% positivity rate. That makes us now the 12th highest in the state. I did pull out some of the DJJ numbers because I did want to make sure they were aware that is in large part because of the DJJ outbreaks. That is relevant for the school setting because they are a congregate living setting, so therefore, just by virtue of a congregate living setting, it does put them at a higher risk than a school setting would. And then locally, the department's role as far as the school openings is to support the governor's reopening plan and to provide them guidance on how to reopen safely. Ultimately, it's the school district's role to decide if and how and when they reopen. Ultimately, the parent and the individual parent's decision on sending their kids back to school. We've handed out all of our cloth masks that we have. That was 69,500 for public distribution points. We sent out to the newspaper and to all of our PIOs. We worked with the EOC. They were gracious enough to call every single vendor that we had on that list to see if they still had any ample supply of cloth masks. We're going to get that out to the community so they know where those masks are still throughout the community. Antibody test, we had a question, and I think Councilman Abdi had asked if it was the one blood us doing the antibody test. And if you donate blood, they are doing the antibody test, so that's the test if you ever had the virus before. So if you donate it, they are doing that. They're wanting to see if you have the ability to donate the convalescent plasma that is helping treat individuals that are currently fighting off the virus right now. It's one of the treatments that they're doing. It's best if you take the antibody test 1 to 3 weeks after exposure, because there's a high false negativity rate with that. They're not seeing that we have a lot of immunity, at least that's what research is currently stating. So, if I think I had it back in December, I might throw a false positive, false negative rate on that. A positive is positive, but if I had it back in December, as of right now, I might not show up on an antibody test. So the locations for that the Department of Health is aware of locally is the One Blood for antibody testing is the One Blood bus. You can go to oneblood.org if you're donating blood, Quest, and Urgent Care and Amerilabs. You have to contact them for cost information for that. Again, mitigation strategies where you're masked in public, social distance being the number one mitigation strategy, just maintain that 6 feet apart, avoid large crowds, seniors and those over 65, limit exposure to the hand hygiene, stay home if you're sick, stay home if you're positive, and clean and disinfect touch surfaces frequently. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, one more, two.
Tiffany, is there gonna be a supply for youth-size masks for this opening of schools?
The only supply that was given to the schools was directly from the state to the Emergency Operations Center for staff. And I know that the Emergency Operations Center has asked for more cloth masks and was told the state has no more masks.
But they only fit adults. I'm asking specifically with the kids going back to school, if we're gonna prevent this from spreading, how are we gonna get masks for these kids to wear at school?
The state has no more masks, is what my understanding is. I know my kids have figured out how to wear the white cloth mask. I handed it to my 8th grade daughter and said, figure this out, and she figured it out. Because I told her she's not having her give her teacher a hard time, and she's able to figure it out. So my understanding is there's no more masks coming from the state level.
If the school board wants to furnish those, they're gonna have to find.
We gave out of our 69,500, the Department of Health Department of Health in Okeechobee gave the schools 6,000. I can work with Ken to see, but it was for the summer program. Lots of programs that I'm not sure actually occurred for activities and stuff. I don't know if they're putting those back or not. I can work with them.
I'm not asking specifically for free masks. I'm asking for, is there any way that we can get masks for kids, for parents, that even if they have to buy them, because if the kids are gonna wear masks every single day to school.
Yeah, no,
I mean, there's gonna be a need for those, and it's, after dealing with my grandkids, I think it's really hard to fit them, especially the younger ones. I'm not talking 8th graders, I'm talking 3rd grader, 4th grader, so, okay.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Cindy. We
Thank you.
appreciate all your work. Okay, we'll move on. We're on item D under new business. We need to approve the maximum millage rate for advertising for the 2020 tax notices. Staff is recommending 8.6018 for budget year 2020-2021. Exhibit 5 in your packet. Do we have a motion or?
I'll make a motion.
Have a motion to approve the maximum millage rate of 8.6018. We have a second? Second by, motion by Councilmember Clark, second by Councilmember Keith. And I will just remind you, this is for the maximum amount. This is not the amount that we would normally plan to adopt. This just gives us the flexibility, especially during this difficult time, if we had to. So this is the maximum amount that would be allowed. So, yeah, Councilmember Adams.
This is the maximum, and just requesting
we needed more than what happened then?
There is a procedure, you have to notify, I don't remember the exact procedure, we never had to do it, but you have to notify each taxpayer
By mail.
by mail that you are going to, this is, higher than what we're currently, levying. And, this is what we normally have done, is to do the maximum amount. And
Right.
finance director, you may have some insight for me.
Yeah. speaking
Yeah,
here.
I think you need to, just so we're all, can hear.
Mayor, Councilman, and Attorney, of course, our administrator. Yes, so if you chose to enact, as the motion stands at 8.6018, which is 1 mil over our current millage rate, but say at the budget hearing, you feel that we need to go to 9 mils, I'm just throwing that out there, then we would have to physically mail every citizen, every property owner notice that that millage rate will be more than the advertised trim limits of 8.601. As far as I know, I've never done that myself, but that is possible.
And if I, or do you have another question?
I was just gonna say, in these times, I know it's a lot, not that we would do that, but it's a lot easier at this point to consider, we need to do more than just one.
Right, so that's the next question I was gonna ask, and I don't know if you're prepared to answer, but I would have guessed by now you've probably done some preliminary projections. I know we don't have the state projection for next year, but
Yes.
in your opinion, what do you think we ought to do?
Okay, so normally, as the mayor has stated, we normally just add 1 mil to the current millage rate. Without having, we still do not have any of the state estimated revenues. They say that they may be here this week, but I still haven't seen them. I checked them again today. I will tell you that our projected revenues for this fiscal year are definitely, have decreased considerably. I believe that that's probably going to happen for 2021 budget year, as well as funds for our gas tax money. It's definitely down because people are traveling less, and that's a per gallon tax, not a percentage tax. So with some of the council that have mentioned that, yes, it would behoove you to increase it. To be honest, I'm not sure that they felt that was an option, or we probably would have presented that to you tonight. So it's very viable that you would want to possibly increase this from an 8.6018 to something higher, and then during the budgetary workshops and the process, then of course that could increase.
Yeah, Councilmember Gerald.
I don't think it should be increased. From the figures I got from the county, we had an 8% increase this year in assessments from 309 million last year to 332 million this year. And I know that you're very conservative on your figures. And I know we collected more than we had projected last year. And I know the county is very conservative also. I went back to last year. The preliminary the county gave us last year was 304 million, but they collected 5 million more than that. They collected 309 million. So I think with a projection of an 8% increase of assessment over last year, I don't think we need to increase the figure. And as we did last year, we didn't do the 1%. We left it where it was at. I would vote against it. We're trying to save the taxpayers money, and we need to learn to balance a budget without increasing taxes.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Ray, you know,
Not yet.
okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I just want to kind of touch on that though. Although ad valorem is our largest revenue that comes in, it still only is about 25% of our overall revenues. So what we're seeing from the state estimates is that other 75% that we're having, that we see a windfall this year as well as next year.
The reason we went one above, and I know it's been, it's been kind of consensus from this council, that we didn't really want to go any higher, so we left it at the 1+, with also the assumption that there's a potential that this upcoming year may be the year to utilize reserves. Now, we have not talked about that. We haven't gone to the budget workshop. It was just the discussion of setting it one above. We know what that number is. And then again, if we can get additional information from the state we're hopeful we get them before August, before we go into budgeting workshops, that would be available. That's the big concern is, obviously we don't want to raise taxes. We're trying to be consistent. I think, going through preliminary rounds and us working on budgets right now, that we don't want to do an increase. However, it's the other 75% of our revenues is the big concern, or approximately. I'm doing roughly.
But last year, to balance the budget, we voted to pull 1.2 million out of the reserves, which we didn't do. So, if the situation that Wes is talking about, that's where we would have to go to the reserves. And I disagree with opening up for an increase in taxes.
Well, in reserves, I know that revenue, the monthly reports I give you guys, revenues are down, 20 something percent so far of the other 75% of our revenues. That's why it's concerning. I just want council to be aware. That's it. That's why we didn't go any higher than that as well for staff recommendation.
Further discussion?
Is there a timeline that this has got to be done, this right here today? If we have to do this today? If we wait for this additional information?
That's a good question. We're actually restricted by our trim notices that we must approve a maximum millage rate within 30 days of receipt of our applied taxable value DR 424, which is July 30th. So I'm not sure we're going to have the revenues through this week, and then we have to emergency meeting next week to implement a millage rate. But we have to return the information to the property price within 30 days of July 1st.
We actually moved this from the first meeting in July to the second one, and hopeful that we would get some state estimates we have.
Do you feel comfortable with the 1+?
That's why we went consistent. I mean, I didn't want to, we tried to go forward with what we thought we'd go by council, and a 1+ what we have. Obviously, looking at the increase, it's going to be a tough year for everyone regardless.
But this is not to set this, this is only to set a maximum. So this is not to set what it's going to be. This is just saying we're not going to go anywhere above that.
Right.
So.
Mayor,
Yeah.
may I? Again, when you set the millage rate, which we're doing tonight, the maximum millage rate that they're setting tonight, it's saying that to the citizenry, when the trim notice goes out, everyone that owns property within the city receives a notice from the property appraiser, from the tax collector, that says, if this is the value of your taxable value of your home, this is what the millage rate was last year, this is what the city council voted as a maximum millage rate for this year is. That's all that trim notice is saying. Again, as you stated, what happens if we want to increase the millage rate from the maximum, and that would be, paper notice directly to every property owner. Again, stating those same types of values and same types of ad valorem costs. So it could be done, it's just costly to be decided to do that. That's why it's always, in our opinion, that we are, for caution's sake, to add on to it, because you don't know exactly how it's going to shake out. There have been years where we've instituted a millage rate, a maximum millage rate at the same amount, which is very seldom, and then find out that the bottom is falling out of their sales tax revenue. So in that respect, you always err on the caution side.
When we have that problem, that's what the reserve is for. That's the time we go to it, not every year.
Okay.
Is anyone else have a?
I think, I'll just say that this is, I think it's traditionally how we have done it, except for last year, we did not. Traditionally, we've done it, plus the mill, I would, yeah, this is gonna be a tough year. It's gonna be a tough year for any governmental agency. But I would say that, somewhat, Council Member Gerald was saying that if this is not sufficient, I think this is the time we would certainly use some of our reserve to make it. So I would hate to tell the rest, I would hate to go to 8.6 personally. We may have to, but I would hate to do that. But I certainly wouldn't want to tell the residents we were going any higher than that. You know, we kind of have a precedent for doing one above, and I think we're just going to have to kind of live with that.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Okay, we have the motion to approve 8.6018 as the maximum millage rate. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
No. Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item E. We need to approve the 2020-2021 budget preparation and village calendar setting workshops to be held August 12th, 2020 at 5 p.m. and August 18th, 2020 at 5 p.m. if needed. First public hearing will be September the 3rd, 2020 at 6 p.m. and final public hearing September 21st, 2020 at 6 p.m. Those will be all held in, of course, the council chambers. And that's Exhibit 6 in your packet. Do we have a motion? We have a motion to approve the calendar. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? We have to have those at, is it after 5 p.m. or 5 p.m.? But the hearings have to be after 5 p.m., right?
Yes, sir.
Hearings have to be after. So the workshops will be at 5. Okay. All right. Yes, Madam Finance Director, please.
Not that I don't want to speak, and I don't have to, but just for more information again, this calendar is presented to you for twofold. One, based on TRIM, we do have certain requirements that we have to hold public hearings within certain time frames for advertising purposes. The first meeting that committee held is September 3rd, and then with that being said, since our local Okeechobee newspaper has gone to a one publication per week, we've had to readapt our advertising requirements. We can't actually change our advertising requirements. We had to adapt to that one day a week publishing. So that's why the odd days, we usually try to keep your public hearings on regular council meeting nights. First of all, to enable the public to be consistent, to know what we need. So I feel terrible that we're having to do this, but because of the way the calendar falls and because of the publication network, this is the days. Any other questions?
So I'm trying to pull up my calendar here and I'm getting some kind of. So September the 3rd is a Thursday and the 21st is a Monday. So the final public hearing dates will not be on regular council meetings unless we change council meetings for Thursdays.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And I believe the next item on the agenda is to review that, to see if the department change the regular meeting dates to the public hearing dates, but that's planned.
Okay, all right, thank you, Madam Administrator. Okay, the motion is to approve the budget calendar. Any other discussion?
Go ahead and change to the regular meeting.
No, that'll be next.
On the next.
That'll be the next item on the agenda. We won't do that. Okay, we'll vote on the motion to approve the calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Next item is consider rescheduling the September 2020 City Council regular meeting dates to coincide with the budget hearings. If that's your pleasure. So we have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Councilmember Clark.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Gerald. I'm looking at our staff. I guess that's acceptable to everybody. And So you only have to come up here one time, you only have to listen to us one time, okay?
Yeah, two, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, any other discussion? We'll vote on the motion to reschedule the September regular meetings. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. The next item is discussion regarding fire services, and you have several exhibits on that. Exhibit 7, and you were provided with some pay information. You know, we've discussed this several times. I hope you had an opportunity to watch the last county commission meeting. You know, we had discussed this and made what we kind of decided on. The county commission met, and they had some other discussion and some other items. Mr. Administrator, you want to kind of bring us up to date on the remaining issues that are not resolved?
Yeah, at your place, I gave the synopsis. I'm sure everybody's had a time to read it. I think at that point, when it came to equipment, firehouse, et cetera, I think those items kind of taken off the table or kind of resolved. I'll go a little bit more simpler on this tonight. Those items seem to have been resolved. The county and I had the email you saw back and forth on the what they would use the first year. Obviously, the county would determine the cost assessment method for the first year and then reassess during the subsequent years to go back after we update the fire assessment. So I think, again, the contract portion had been worked out, the building, the equipment seemed to be worked out. And I apologize for the memo, it should be the 697, not the 678. So apparently, you know, obviously those items.
Originally, I had understood that they were going to go by their original contract.
Correct, the original contract.
But now they're saying they will do the assessment.
In the 2nd through 5th year, that's per the email.
Oh, I thought for the first year, they would still do the assessment. Says the county in the first year would tentatively agree to accept the fire assessment methodology as payment.
Would be more.
So it'd be more than
The 697.
or 678.
That's in either, because that's what we proposed. So in either method, I think that, again, when it came down to what the contract would be, they were still going to firm that up as well. And the 2nd through the 5th years where I had a question on which method they were going to assess. And that's why we requested clarification from.
So where are we differing now?
Right now, and obviously the big one, the elephant in the room, was the county is not going to open the union contract, which is why we requested the pay rate or the salary sheets that we presented. We got this Thursday afternoon. We knew they could hire our folks up to a level 3. And the other side of that is they would not hire anyone unless they were a paramedic, regardless if we had put pay their salary, and if we paid for their additional classes, they still would not hire. So when I got the information from the county, I wanted to make sure we could actually compare apples to apples when it came to salaries. So that's why we prepared the little bit larger rate sheet, so you could see kind of the comparison of our folks. Once they would go over there, since the union contract's not going to be open, they would go through a probationary period. They would go through, 3-month step down as an EMT, even that as paramedics, and then beyond probationary period, salary less for another year. So that was basically the compiling of the sheet we sent out on Friday. The basic synopsis of that would be is we're going to have to apparently do 6 payouts. 3 folks that are not EMTs, as well as the 3 that we had previous discussion that were dropped or administrative staff that we would have to pay out. And then the hires would be split. Obviously, the new EMTs coming into the county would get paid a lot higher rate because they come in as paramedics. And then for the most part, our seniority guys would lose their seniority, their rank, and pay in various levels from 14 to 24%. So I just want to basically a quick layout, good and bad, from the outcome. again, the union contract negotiation and personnel apparently was an issue for us. With them saying they're not opening the contract, I wanted to put it in perspective.
So based on, so they're not gonna hire just the EMTs?
No, sir.
And they're not going to recognize rank. So what would a lieutenant go over as a firefighter, paramedic then?
Yeah.
Step 3 EMT.
Correct. And that's where we assigned what the proposed hiring, and we have not verified that they would be hired. My understanding would be they would take, a minimum pay cut as possible. Obviously, our newbies, I can say that now, our newbies would go over, they would be hired as a, paramedic 1 because they don't have any seniority with their pay. So again, they don't have paramedic pay. So obviously that's not what they are here, so they'll see an increase in their pay. But all our senior folks, even at their maximum level with, like I said, I want to make sure we added the same appropriate overtime, they have the same holidays, pay as we get, et cetera. I just wanted to be apples for apples. Even at that level 3, they could hire, they still would have the loss in pay. So again, I just wanted to make sure that we were looking at apples to apples, but I have not verified they would hire at level 3, although my assumption is they would hire up to that level. So again, that's the only thing we want for clarification.
Okay, so as it stands right now, I guess we need to decide if that's acceptable to us, which will, and then move forward. So I guess we're open up for discussion. Councilmember Heath?
Just a quick question, information that we've requested, information the county's requested, we've got your, the administrator's email, from the, county administrator from yesterday and today. And I see the same question being asked in this email that was posed, at their July 9th meeting, and then it's in your synopsis dated July 13th, which is, once the county knows which employees are coming from the city, then a more accurate cost can be developed, so on and so forth. Is that still up in the air? Do we know, has that information been given to the county yet? Because I see it as a question that's been lingering. In fact, the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners told me a while back that he was waiting for that information also. So do we know that?
This information was sent to Robbie, minus obviously the columns with the cost comparison to the county, Monday of last week.
And why she's asking Tuesday, July 21st, today, once the county knows which employee, so who's coming, this is just a list of numbers and dollar amounts. Which numbers on this spreadsheet have raised their hand and said, I'll go work there. Because isn't that what, I mean, they're willing to take a certain number, but that doesn't mean the firefighters that are here at the city are willing to be those numbers, that number of personnel. Do we even know who's willing to go?
Well, and just to kind of preface that, we sent her over the sheet. Their requirements of it being a paramedic are not knocked out to 6. 3 they're not going, and 3 they're not EMTs. As for the remaining, now they know the union contract's not going to be opened up. I mean, that's it.
So basically, we'll have a total of 7 paramedics that are available to fill their required number 6 paramedics that they want to hire. Well, 6 and inspector. It's the 7. That's why I said it's 6.
All right, Chief, you want to respond to that? Or just a second.
Could I?
Yeah, Councilmember Gerald.
All right. The figures I understand it here, it's 47, 9, 44, 46. That column there is what they would be paying to a paramedic because they're going to start them as a new employee. Is that correct?
No, sir. When they would go start at the county, since they're not opening up the contract,
After the 90 days, I'm talking about.
after a year, they would start there.
Okay, where's the 90 day?
The 90 days, the 41, 6, 90, 54.
That's what they start for the first 3 months.
For the first 3 months,
After that,
They
then
go
they'll start, so it'll be 46,
9, 40, 44.
Yep. So when I look at this, we're showing 7 firemen here, paramedics, okay? 4 of them would make more money than they're making now. The other 3 are gonna make less, as I see it here,
Yes, yes, big,
okay? If we do this, my suggestion would be to, if these other 3 went to the county, that we pay them what they're making now, and we get that money by selling the equipment to the county, which, the trucks. So it would be a washout. So we'd pay them the difference, at least for the first year. I'm making that as a suggestion.
So that would be a change to what we had agreed to.
But, but we never, you were too talking about the equipment, okay? We can charge on that equipment enough to cover, to pay these guys what they're making, what they're doing for the first year.
If the county would buy it.
Well, the county don't have to buy it. They just have to, we just tell them what we want for the equipment.
But I think we kind of already agreed that we were going to give them the equipment.
But I discussed that with some commissioners over there, that we may charge them. And I didn't get an objection from anybody.
I was saying, my bigger concern when it came to that, if that was council's pleasure, it's fine. It's, if we have 3 that we're not paying for, or that they're not taking, I have a potential buyout that I've got to do now on 6. And that's the concern. Just to council, I want to express that it's 6 now. Okay, and that's a substantial dollar.
Okay, it's okay, Chief, if you want to answer the question that was asked about, if you have any idea of the employees that might go over.
The employees, their concern is, I mean, they don't want to say, yes, we want to go, no, we don't want to go, without having a written offer of, here's what we're going to make, here's what we're going to get. That's the problem with, they're not saying they don't want it, but they want to know exactly what they're going to make. And that way, then they can make their choice whether to go or not. You know what I'm saying? That's only fair.
Don't we have that from
Well, is that what's being offered?
And this spreadsheet dated 7/17,
This would be, if the county, like I said, they're not going to open a union contract, this is the max for that. Now, again, what we didn't include here were steady stipends for additionals the same way we do. Those aren't included in here in the base rate. This is just consistency with overtime.
This is at step 3.
Correct. So step 3, you have to.
We would have to make sure that the county is going to bring them over on step 3.
Correct, yes.
They had indicated they would, but then after this other discussion, I'm not sure that they're willing to do that.
I can verify that, but since she has this sheet now. So.
One of the big issues we are having is the probationary period. We feel that's not fair. Especially in any consolidation of merger, when they talk about that doesn't happen. I mean, so now we have employees that are lingering on again. Now we got 12 more months to worry about their job. If they do, somebody don't like them, technically, that's hanging over their head all the time. So that is another aspect that we appreciate that you express that needs to be addressed. Fair. And everything that
They want our 2 numbers, they need to do all that.
that's true. I mean, we don't
You don't have to repeat. We didn't hear what that comment.
What I was talking to Chief was about was, if you want a true number, who all's going, county wants that true number. We don't have the number as in the 6 possible buyouts, or who all, we know right now that all 11 personnel
would be going over. That's the true number, all 11 would be going over. So we don't know what their possible buyout would be for the 6 people or the 3 people. So if tonight, right now, if you want a true number, all 11 of us would be going over right now. Not just out of 7, 4 get a raise.
They're not gonna take the raise, so.
No.
So, we know.
The point is they want, I mean, they would be willing to go over, they just comes down to the pay, they don't want to lose, money, and there's a probationary period. That's all they're asking, to make that clear.
I'm trying to thank you, Chris.
I was just trying to simplify that for council because we knew certain aspects because we knew not opening that kind of answered items for us. So with the stance of they're not hiring EMTs, right up, we know that 3 do not have a position. During our discussions, we had 2 in drop and 1 administrative that were not in the plan. So there's 6 that they found. So again, I don't, and the number, this is to me, the max base pay they're going to get, period, without opening any contract. And again, we already know, unfortunately, guys, it's because doing it is no rank, on probation, and misdemeanor.
Yeah, Councilmember Evans.
The one thing that I'm really objecting to, and I have to agree with the chief, is the probationary period. I feel that if they're gonna bring them over, that they should bring them as a full-time employee day 1. My next comment is I look at the net pay comparison of the city to the county. That's the 3rd column from the end. If I add up all of the ones that will be getting a decrease, I'm showing $19,149.85 a year different person. I think that we should do some homework to find out what the payout would be for the drops and the ones that we would be giving that money or giving that opportunity to, or offering their buyout, or however you want to call that. And I also would look at it to see at that $19,149.85 a year. I haven't done the math, but what would the math be to take that number for their pay through the stages or steps up to where they would be currently? What I'm trying to get at is if we're going to be paying a discounted rate, or we're going to be saving $600,000, and it's $20,000 a year difference to make the ones that would go over that would be getting a decrease in pay, I think that we have some room to work with that number to try and make the ones that are going over that would be losing money, make them whole to some degree. But until we do that, I'd like to know from staff what the numbers would be for the buyouts and so forth, to get a bottom number to add to the base rate to see how much we are still going to be saving. I know that I'm sure that we will, but to take some of that money and use to bring up some of these pay employees up to what they're making now for the city.
We have a mechanism.
Making sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. We would, like we were talking about, paying employees that they didn't really need. Correct. This would be the same type thing. Is there a way to do that? To pay somebody that's not our employee? Or would we have to have the county agree to pay them that? We reimburse the county help? Is there a mechanism to do that? See, there's the heads that get together over there. Yes, sir.
Oh, no, yeah, we can calculate it and have that something set forth.
from my discussions with a few of the firefighters, seniority and rank is not as important to them as the salary is, which I totally understand. So, you know, doing the simple math at $20,000 a year, I think we have some flexibility to try and make them whole for a certain amount of time. So,
And what would you want to do with the three that they're not going to take over, that they're saying they would not hire? Would we want to do some kind of buyout for them?
there would be some type of a buyout or a separate.
We're talking about a severance,
Yeah.
not a buyout. I just want to-
Well, there's a few that-
What are you buying out?
We can't use term severance.
Yes.
You can't use term severance.
Okay. Compensation.
It's making them whole, if you will.
Okay, sorry.
There's a salary, I'm sorry,
Okay.
there's a lot of things that go into that. Salary is one.
I just have a comment. If I were on the county commission, or if I was on the county staff, and I had the opportunity to have 3 additional employees that I could use to offset overtime or to fill in, or just 3 employees that I didn't have to pay for, why wouldn't I want those employees? I don't understand that. That's hard for me to understand. If as a business person, when I was in business, I had it was a training, one of these training things. They said, you know, we'll give you this employee, we're paying the salary, we're paying the workers' comp, and then we just want you to let them work with you to get experience or training. Well, that was an extra employee. That was nice to have somebody you didn't have to pay, but you still had on. They don't. So to me, I don't understand that. I understand that if they took that employee and a paramedic left, that we couldn't get credit for that employee stepping up. I understand that until they have an EMT leave, or until that EMT gets paramedic status and could be promoted. I mean, I understand that, but I just don't understand. But that was their choice to make. We're asking them for something.
So standing comment, but that was proposed to, Marcus gave them that, correct, Marcus?
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, it's not an issue anymore, they're not gonna do it, you know?
But it's only an issue that that was one of our things, that we wanted to protect our employees, and we were willing to pay their salary for them to go over.
And we gave that proposal to them, and they said they're not gonna do it. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the union contract or not, where you change the pay, but they're flat denied, they're not gonna do it.
Is there, can we ask for reason or for why?
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to, I think we need to boil it down I guess if we, I guess we need to, decide if you're going to, accept that, counter proposal, I guess you could say, that we're not going to, even for, we're going to be concerned, we're going to do something else with those 3 employees. I don't know if we need to go, I don't think they're going to be, I don't know about on the employees, the 3 employees, but I know on the other issues, as I understand it, and I may be wrong, but from what I understood from their discussions, these are all things that have to do with the union contract. The probation, is one of those that has to do with the union contract. And they are not willing, to negotiate or open a union contract or negotiate with the union. So I think this is what we're going to have. I mean, we can ask them, well, would you reconsider taking those, or would you consider not doing the probation, or I don't know that.
I think
Yeah.
you're correct, as I was explaining, they told me it has to be the 1-year probation because they're coming in as a new employee.
Yeah, Councilman McKee.
I have a question and comments. What we're what we've been discussing here, is contract for services, interlocal agreement versus a merger. Is that language correct? So you're saying? Correct. So we're retaining control of, paying or, providing the services through a contract or an interlocal agreement. This was brought up a year ago in order to save tax dollars to our citizens here in the city. So we're requesting a contract for these services. So obviously the county, will, whatever they, propose, I mean, that their rules, their union contract, whatever is in place, I don't see how, the back and forth negotiation, what they propose is what they have to do, is what they're offering. I think any compensation or buyout or making whole for our city employees is incumbent upon us to take care of after the fact. But what we've lost sight of, what we brought up a year ago here at this dais, was saving city taxpayers money in regards to having fire services provided by another entity in a contractual service. And there will be some upfront, costs that go along with that, but the future savings, the savings that will be realized over the next 10, 20, 30 years needs to be brought in front of us again, because it's not just saving $500,000 or whatever the magic number is next year, this next budget year, 2 budget years from now. It's the compensation, the payouts over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years that will be savings. There's other savings, the maintenance costs, there's other savings that go along with the contractual services.
Okay. So, we need to either give staff direction, or we need to say, this is okay, let's go with it, or can we?
So do we have to give them an answer today?
No, we don't have to give them an answer today.
Okay. I would like to look at the numbers that I propose. Find out the packages, the buyout, compensation, before we can really agree to go forward with it. We need to know what, on top of this base rate, what additional costs do we have?
Mr. Administrator and Finance Director, did you have those?
We've got a good solid core on those. It's just.
If we want to include the 3 that are not, county's not going to take it.
If they're not going to take it, I think we need to ask them again if they reconsider, and then if not, then what that would be also.
Councilmember Park?
Yes, thank you. I have another suggestion. At the meeting last Thursday at the county commission, they said that the earliest they would consider a contract would be May or June of next year. Their collective bargaining agreement comes available in October. I don't see any reason that we continue these discussions when we're talking almost a year before we even have an agreement. I think that I'd like to know if they would be willing to open the bargaining agreement in October to consider. I mean, you made a comment, can't believe that they're not going to take 3 EMTs that we're willing to pay to send to paramedic school, for free basically, because we're going to pay for them. But that's not any different than $20,000 more we're willing to pay, and it would make our department basically whole for those people that went over, and I just don't understand it. So obviously there's a problem with negotiating that contract. I've said it before and I'm just going to say it again. It's hard to do a contract with somebody that doesn't want to do a contract. And obviously when they keep throwing things back up that haven't been clear before, because in the presentation that Robbie presented to the county commission, it said from Chief Franklin, it said that they were gonna take 3 EMTs and 3 paramedics and 1 inspector.
The first presentation.
That was the presentation that they made to us, that that's what they were gonna take. In that time frame, they had hired EMTs. And until March, they were advertising for EMTs. So, I'm honestly, I'm tired of this discussion about the fire department. You know, it's been going on for a year. I don't think we can do anything. I think, I hate to say it, and I'm gonna say it publicly, but I think the election is having an influence, the county election's having an influence on this decision. And I think we need to put it off for at least, till after the election. And then if we want to pick it back up again, I'd be more than happy to do that. But honestly, I'm done with this for right now.
I'd like to make a motion that we have the 2 attorneys to see if they can draw up some kind of proposal to us. And in the meantime, that we ask Marcus to give us those figures and try to do the buyout, or at least get the numbers together and bring that to the next meeting.
Okay. Since we're talking about fire service, that motion is in order, so do we have a second for that motion? Second. Motion is second, we'll have discussion on the motion, so, basically, we would be working with this, because that's what the county's given us, unless they make some other adjustments, so, I think we all know, our agreement was that we would give them the equipment, that they would use our facility for some storage. And, so I think everybody knows. I assume we will probably be working with this chief pretty much. So discussion from the council on the motion.
To be clear with the motion, you're wanting the 2 attorneys to form a contract based on the proposal. And in the meantime, research the items that I discussed.
Correct. Bring it to the next meeting so that we can vote on it.
So, Councilmember.
Yeah, go ahead.
Councilmember, what you had discussed and those numbers coincide with what I commented on. I believe that would be our, after the fact, making everything whole, action that we would be able to still take, regardless of contract. And the effects of the contract, we would still, that's our city employees that we would be compensated to make them whole.
Or if they become technically, would we be legally allowed to do that? Make them whole versus paying the county to offset that cost.
And maybe I didn't understand the comment previously. Was that ongoing pay or the buyout? That's what I
Well,
thought.
there's several that would be buyouts, and there are several that would be losing money going over. And that money lost is about $20,000 a year. When I look at just the net pay comparison city council, I'm only looking at ones that would be losing money. It's about a $20,000 loss as a whole.
So are you suggesting paying that difference in their annual salary?
To make them whole, I don't know what, I would like to see what that number would be over a certain amount of years to where they got up to back to that number, or just give them a one-time package, including going over to make them whole as possible.
And would that situation be dependent on their employment with them and continued employment? Because what's to say, if they're according to any buyouts or whatever, we don't have any solid declaration of intent to go over. I know some firefighters have already left and have have gotten raises and promotions in other counties once they left the city fire department over the past year. So what's to say that they're not going to shop around and not even go over to the county, because we don't pay as much as surrounding county. This county doesn't.
Yeah, I don't want to put words in the council's mouth, but I would assume if they didn't choose to go over, that goes away. We're not going to make them whole if they don't.
Okay, that's.
If they go somewhere else and make more money, we're not going to go give them $10,000. So I would assume.
If we approve this and you have a discussion with the other attorney, these items can be discussed correctly as far as the pay, whether we could add it to,
Add it to the contract?
not to the contract, that we could pay them, or that they could pay them and we could reimburse.
That had to be worked out.
I can tell you from, I understood the county's position there. I think they have made it clear that if whatever we, the city, wants to make the fire staff full time, that's up to us. They're not going to be a conduit for that. And frankly, I think that's a legitimate position. If I may just now, so I want to be very clear in your direction. It's really what I think, in effect, you're asking me is to go to the county or county attorney and say, put your bottom line in a contract so I can bring it back. It really isn't much negotiation at this point.
Except what we've added tonight.
Yes, sir, on the equipment and the fire station storage. Yeah, absolutely.
So is now, so I'm clear too, is the other additional cost, that's just between the city and the employees. Okay, and just for informational levels, I do have the entire step plan. The firefighters that it would go over now, the three that would see a loss, it's 6 or 8 years before they would get to that step, just for informational purposes.
Why don't we come back with the buyout, what that cost would be for the 6 or 8 years, so that we can add it to a base to see what that number is going to be.
If you were to do that, I envision similar to what we did when you agreed to fund paramedics. You would have an individual agreement with each person, and that agreement would be if you go to the county, and if you stay with the county on an annualized basis, there are things the city would do to make them whole. Obviously, the agreement would provide that if they leave, it's a different scenario, but so long as they stay and move up the process at the county. So that would be individual agreements.
Yeah. Okay. So the council.
My concern is that we're giving direction to him, and I don't believe for a heartbeat that would be back to us at the next meeting. Because they're gonna have to take it back to the county commission to vote on. And we're talking already, October, probably, before we're gonna see. I don't believe these numbers are gonna change.
The next meeting information was just the personnel, the city.
His
not
motion, his motion asked that the two attorneys get together, do a contract and bring it back before the next meeting. And I don't believe it's possible.
They meet every Thursday, though.
Well, I'm,
No, they won't be qualified.
Okay. I amend my motion to be the second meeting, whatever date that is. When's our second?
I'm going right back.
But would it be acceptable to council as upon immediate completion, rather than trying to set the
Yeah,
date?
right.
Because I know when we have attorneys involved, I can mess with them a little bit whenever they get it prepared, and the county, but, if the county wants to put it on their agenda to discuss the part too.
Okay.
So, as soon as it's prepared, that makes sense.
Again, Mr. Mayor, my concern is that we won't even have any paramedics that can go over until May, right? Is that not correct, May? May would be the earliest. Then they have to be trained for 90 days. So now we're talking June, July, August. Their collective bargaining agreement comes up in October of next year. So why wouldn't we try to do it totally as one agreement rather than trying to piecemeal all these little individual items?
I think the county's made it very clear that they're not gonna start this with January 1. It's gonna be, I forgot the date, they said June or July or,
June.
yeah,
In
June
the
start
county
date.
meeting, right?
Yeah, June, whatever that date was. So, it's not gonna happen by January 1, which is kind of what we originally proposed. I guarantee you that it'll look like one.
And the other comment that I have is that we were talking about the assessment being used, and my concern, I had some concerns. Concern that the methodology that they're gonna be using to update year 2 for fire assessment is gonna be including what happens at that negotiations, which they're talking about pay raises for firefighters, family health insurance. I don't know what else is gonna happen. They're gonna talk about those things, but, honestly, if they're gonna open it up in October, they can open up what they're gonna do with the probation period and all these things. So what difference does it make if it's gonna happen? It's not gonna happen until minimum June next year, and then 90 days of training under the contract. So why not put it off till next spring? That's my.
We've been working on this since last July, and I think if we put it off again, we're just gonna keep kicking it down the road. We're at this point, and I don't know if they can come up with an agreement or not, but I think if we're in this far, I think we at least need to go to the next step and see if we can get an agreement.
The county will give us an agreement. It may not be what we want, but they'll give us it. Okay, I had anticipated we would take some comments. We were just under discussion, but since we have the motion, we will allow some public comments. So, if any members of the public either here or on, I saw Captain first. Oh, I'm sorry, I saw Captain first. So, okay, whichever one. We'll get you vote.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with what Councilmember Clark is saying is to wait, is because I believe Administrator Charvier and also Chief Rankin made it pretty obvious. They're not taking EMTs. Obviously, we're still EMTs and we're not going to be certified until June is the earliest. Just to take our state test and be certified. So, like I said, I agree with what Ms. Clark has to say. Why not just hold off and just have a hold instead of making this go through right now? So that's all I have to say. Is I agree with it.
Thank you. Thank you. Wes, you want us to watch it down before you come up? Or?
He's coming. He's coming.
I probably should care after 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, deputy's report does.
I could have got my mask from there and I would put it on.
And I'm sorry, I should say, we do take. Captain Rodriguez was the last.
Frank Williamson the third, I'm here on behalf of that one council. I'm going to start this conversation the same way I finish it. This will save you all $650,000. The economic answer, I think that you all should accept the proposal from somebody. You're in favor of accepting that, all the other stuff, making people whole, the additional salary and stuff, that's stuff that you all can adjust after you decide. And you know how many 5 hours stay at home and stuff. So, in this conversation, I say it will save $650,000. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Wes. Any other comments? Do we have any Zoom comments?
No, sir.
No Zoom comments. Okay. All right, we're back up here. Any other discussion from the council? I would just say I continue to agree with Councilman Clark that you out there will anyway. Any other discussion from the council? We'll vote on the motion. Yes, Councilman Evans.
Just to be clear, this vote is only getting more information from staff for buyout.
And get a copy, and do your local for the council.
That to come back to us for approval.
Councilmember Gerald made a motion. Councilmember Keith was the second. right, Madam Clerk?
That's correct.
Just trying to, you saying you want to break, you want to have a separate motion?
No, I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
what the-
Do a clarification.
I'm just trying to get clarification and just to make sure that we're not making any decisions tonight other than more fact finding thoughts and the two attorneys to have more discussion. So that's the only reason for the.
No, that interlocal rather than just having emails and paper. Okay? Any other discussion? Okay, we'll vote on the motion then. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries 3-2. So, Mr. Attorney, you have your motion, sir. Okay, we're through with that item. We will go to the last item of the new business that was added. We have a memo at your place. I'm gonna let the administrator kind of explain this, and then we'll keep on motion in order, if that's okay.
That's good. And it kind of tails in a little bit as to Tiffany's discussion on the return to work items as well. We had a discussion, actually earlier on, when having exposure to COVID. Actually, your staff, we had a discussion on department heads. Under the new federal guidelines for the families first, there's additional 80 hours given for anybody that has COVID or has been exposed to COVID under those guidelines under FMLA, excluding first responders. Well, they've expanded first responders to include also public works. So literally the only staff that's not covered currently right now that would be entitled under these additional hours would be administrative staff and struggle covered. So the idea was to bring this to council, say, okay, if there's any issues, been positive or exposed, we would afford them the same opportunity as we would any other employee. So it's just the level of playing field. The other items we did put in here is based on department's head recommendation and discretion to come back. Like there's additional return to work. You don't need to have potentially negatives in place if it's basically symptoms, etc. And those are changing daily for years. So again, it's just to put everyone on the same level playing field.
So some of our employees would be covered regardless.
Yes, sir.
Except for first responders.
First responders, and again, that lumped in public works on the
Those are
program.
the ones that should be included. I mean, it just seems back. I mean, federal.
They had specific requirements.
Correct.
Yeah, they're different. They're just different.
Well, I think they view essential workers in a different category. They actually wanted them to continue on using protection.
Okay, so to put this into effect, we would need a motion to authorize the department heads to approve up to 2 weeks of administrative leave with pay. You can take out that require testing, right?
Correct.
And just follow CDC guidelines for their return to work.
The wording says that for circumstances specifically relating to their exposure to the coronavirus while not on duty, and they would get 2 weeks administrative leave. And it says that this poster is on the back side, and I don't see that wording on this back side.
No, and we had that discussion too. We can't really prove where someone was exposed or not exposed. So this, we can say maybe we should take that while I'm on duty for the exposure to coronavirus, period. Because we don't know, we're not going to get discrimination whether here or
And
there.
what's the definition of being exposed? I mean, if I came in and said to you, I guess
There actually is.
That's good. Correct, they would have to meet
Yeah.
one of these 6
Qualifiers.
qualifiers, following the same guidelines that
As a family person.
okay, because what this says is, in my viewpoint, is not reflected in what we wrote here, in what we're asking us to vote on tonight. It says, the request is for city council to authorize department heads to approve up to 2 weeks administrative leave with pay and require testing prior to returning to work for first responders within their department at the department head's discretion for circumstances specifically relating to their exposure to the coronavirus while not on duty.
Mark, what brought this up, I think it's important with Herb and I that we not make this so strict. In other words, come up with like this, that we must follow CDC guidelines. Well, the CDC guidelines are different than health departments. Everybody has different guidelines. What we're asking is simply allowing the department heads to approve 2 weeks leave with pay for a coronavirus related incident. And if we could tailor that, and the reason it's come up is fire chief actually has an employee that has an exposure, but he doesn't have the sick time on the books. So the only option, he can't let him come back to work, and I can see this happening in my department also as we go forward. He can't let the employee come back to work through no fault of his own, and the employee will not get paid. So if we can just pass a motion to allow department heads to, up to 2 weeks leave without pay, which is what the federal government has done for non-essential employees, then that would work for us and not limit us, in our ability to bring back to work.
Okay.
Like, we can't have the whole
But
department.
we're not going to require testing.
Right, leave that up to the department head discretion would be my recommendation.
Okay, and for instance, I'm just gonna say Orlando Health, I'm just gonna use Orlando Health. My daughter is a labor delivery nurse. She was exposed to a woman delivering babies that had coronavirus, okay? They told her she had to go get tested, and he tested 2 days in a row and could not come back to work, until this test came back negative or positive. And they came back negative. They didn't come back positive. So she now has to go back to work. But those days she took off had to come out of her sick time. She doesn't get any paid off. So what you're asking us for is that you're going to give a discretion for it to be paid for 2 weeks. Well, this says coronavirus while not on duty. And I guess that's my problem. Because any of us could say we've been exposed to coronavirus off duty, so why are you saying take that out because it happened at duty?
We would, my recommendation would be simply to make a motion to allow department heads to authorize up to 2 weeks leave with pay due to coronavirus event. So that would be my recommendation. Now, I know other places, there are some first responder type places that don't allow that, but that doesn't mean we can't do it.
Okay, well, again, I just have a problem with that language, setting it up as that they were exposed to coronavirus while not on duty. I can see if it was a duty event and you have the 2 weeks.
But there's no way that when a first responder, we deal with, our guys are dealing with literally 50, 60 people a day, and then they go home, somebody at home has it. We would never know if I'm at home and my wife tests positive, and then I go to get positive, what's to say that I'm not the one that gave it to her?
I understand. Well, then it should say while or while not.
You can actually leave that whole thing out.
If I can intervene just a minute, and I apologize, initially when we were typing in the memo, we were not going to attach the flyer to it. But, at the 9th hour, we decided it would be a little bit clearer if you had a flyer so that you could understand what all the employees who are non-first responders get under this new federal law that's in effect until December 31st. So if some of the language is incorrect or not, is a little too much for now that we have additional information, we can certainly remove it. And how Chief Peterson explained it is exactly the way we wanted to present it to you all. Keep in mind, nurses are also
also included in the federal definition for first responders, which is why in your circumstance that your daughter wasn't, had to do the same thing, and we would do it as well. We would have a situation where off duty they were exposed and if we shown off duty, then they would have to use their own accrued leave. However, if they're exposed while on duty, it then becomes workers' comp. So it's completely different, right?
Not specifically.
Well,
It could be.
Don't
say it will
Well,
be.
I'm sorry, it could be, if it could be shown specifically in there, it's possible that it could be shown that it could fall under workers' comp. That's the reason why we were trying to say that, and we can remove the wording for not on duty, because now what we're trying to do is.
I don't have a problem if it
Same
says-
exact guidelines, but myself or any other non-first responder would get, we're trying to level the playing field, as we said. And so please remove any of but basically we're just allowing the same thing, but just for first responders.
Okay, so we want the motion would need to be, we would like to authorize the department heads to approve up to 2 weeks administrative leave with pay, for first responders.
And we could just say following the same, the acronym is FFCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act, following the same guidelines.
Following the same guidelines as the first federal families first coronavirus contact.
I think the attorney wants to.
Yeah.
I know, I'm gonna try to bring this
Okay,
in.
thank you for all that.
So the original intent here was to bring first responders, as you said, level playing field.
Right.
However, the chief said is, yeah, but we're exposed every day, on duty, off duty. So, and I think, Chief, with all due respect, the way you said just a corona event, now that you can drive a Mack truck through that. So I think we do have to have some parameters. So what I would recommend, there's 6 on the back here. We can add a 7 to address what the chief said, which is or exposure to a confirmed coronavirus individual. Someone confirmed to have it. You add that 7th parameter, I think that gives you what you're looking for. There needs to be parameters.
In the situation I was, I am requiring documentation from this individual for his family member. Before I would do that anyway, because I want confirmation, And the second part of this, which, I mean, we would never think people would do this, but we know that's human nature. Would an employee come in and they're not gonna tell me they were exposed, and now I allow that person to hear about this. My firefighters, before I know it, half my station's wiped out from being exposed. I'm not saying anybody would do that, but it is a possibility. This is one of the main, my angle is more of, hey, let's pay them. It's more of, I have to protect the others. And if we do with discretion, obviously I would not just hand out 2 weeks, but that would be right. But we have some confirmed documentation from a doctor, a medical center that yes, a father or mother is documented as having it, and they have close proximity for a long period of time, over 15 minutes, yes, they have exposure. Therefore, we go through the process of the 14 days, that type of thing. And the other aspect was obviously my fear that somebody would not tell me they were exposed. If that helps.
Is that documentation from a doctor for another person, would that be a violation of HIPAA? Is that, are you able to request that documentation? Just throwing that question towards our city attorney.
Well, that's number 2. That's number 2.
They want to add and they.
Yeah, you go to healthcare, they're gonna advise.
Okay, so
I've been exposed.
they don't want to do it, they're not exposed. So then his documentation would be just regarding that staff from a healthcare provider, like not from the mother's healthcare provider that said, you're different, like I'm just trying to clarify and make sure we're not requesting things that aren't legally, we're not allowed to do. We can't request somebody else's healthcare.
He just
Yeah,
said exposure confirmed.
Right, confirmed exposure. I'm just trying to make it, because if
Yeah.
an employee came, the administrator said, I was with my brother all weekend, he just got tested positive. Marcus is gonna say, go home right now.
Yeah.
Quarantine and get tested and give me a call when you get all that information. We want to be able to do the same, right, the police and fire, and have them on paid leave while that's happening.
And may I make one comment? I think we need to be careful. I understand what you're saying, but I think we need to be careful. There's a reason why first responders were excluded from all of this. And that is because you can't send all of us home, right? You just can't do it. There's a certain risk in our job, and we understand that. So if we're going to add to this, now we're making this applicable to first responders, which is not the case. What we're simply asking for is a motion to allow department heads to approve 2 weeks leave without pay for a coronavirus related incident at department head discretion. That's it. That doesn't make any of this applicable to first responders because it currently isn't applicable. And it leaves us discretion if we have an employee like he does who has no time on the books, and now he can't let him come back to work. So really and truly, we don't need to overcomplicate this. My request to Herb's too is simply if we can have a motion to let our department head discretion approve 2 weeks leave without pay for a coronavirus. But that will cover everything that we need with pay.
And we have all the HIPAA forms and they're updated with all the new stuff with the coronavirus. So we implement all the safety guards so that HIPAA violations are not that at all.
Right. And fiscally as well, just so for the council, those additional dollars to cover that shift or to cover that person would go into the CARES dollars that we would apply. So fiscally, we be covered from a dollar standpoint.
Mr. Mayor.
No, we don't. Wait.
I was just about to get.
Go, please.
What's the appropriate motion? I'd like to make a motion to approve. You know what? I must say, I appreciate, discretion at the department head level. Your staff, what you need to require. I think that if we didn't trust your discretion, then you wouldn't be in that position. Yeah, so, and then of course we have the city administrator that's, I know he's in y'all's offices quite a bit all around. So if he thinks something ain't on the up and up, then he's gonna squash it as well. I would make that declaration right now. So with that being said, I make a motion to approve authorizing department heads to approve up to 2 weeks, 80 hours administrative leave with pay for first responders within their department at the department head's discretion.
For coronavirus.
Are we adding any of that?
Just take the word out.
That'd be perfectly fine. Perfectly
For
Specifically
coronavirus.
related to their exposure with coronavirus.
Have a motion and a second. Other discussion on the motion? I'm sorry, Councilmember Keith made the motion, Councilmember Gerald second. Other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Oh, we made a complicated mess.
I'm sorry, real quick, before you go into the council comments. Back on the first new business item, exhibit 40, the resolution 2020-9. I didn't want to stop the meeting at that point in time, but there was a typo that was read into the title. The fiscal year should actually be 2020-21, and in the content, the body of the actual resolution, it does say 2021. And so I wanted to just clarify with the attorney if that needs to be changed or fixed in any manner.
I think it's a clerical error that you've now clarified on the record. I don't think it requires reconsideration.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Chairman, Council, that's the error authorized the search of prepared up there. Okay, we will move on now to the council, here, council member comments. We'll call it Councilmember Adams. No comment. Councilmember Gerald.
Wes, we know why you work with cows.
I do too.
No, the fire department has been very discussed item for a long time, and I would like to ask that we support council, and the vote was 3-2, and that I don't read it in the paper or Wednesday, any comment negative to that effect, or hear it on the radio tomorrow morning. We need to respect the council, each other.
Thank you, Councilmember Keith. Councilmember Clark. That is the last item on the agenda, so we are.